Good evening and welcome to Freedom is a Constant Struggle with your host Kilu Nyasha, engineered by Arnell Valle. And our wonderful guest this evening is Ida McCray of Families with a Future. Thank you so much, Ida, for joining us here on Freedom is a Constant Struggle. How are you?
Fine, thank you. It's really an honor to be here, and an honor to be here with you. Thank you.
Yes, it is a real pleasure to have you. And Ida, we first met when you were still in Dublin prison.
Absolutely.
And
I was there, and you came and made your way all the way to Federal Correctional Institute. And that's where we first met, after writing letters and me hearing you all the time on the radio with great admiration. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you for that.
And would you like to explain to our listeners why you were in Dublin?
Well, sure. Many years ago, once upon a time, there was a dream that it would be a different type of world. And in that, lots of things happened in the 70s, early 70s. It was Attica, it was Comrade George who's murdered, and it was so many things that happened.
Of course.
And there was shootings on campuses, not Kent, but, all over throughout. And there were several hijackings, of which I was involved in one, and I hijacked a plane from San Francisco and wound up in Cuba.
And I think you spent about 4 years in Cuba?
4.5 years, yes.
Right. What was that experience like?
It was something that totally changed my life, not only systematically because of you left from here and I'm in Cuba, but living in a socialist country opened my eyes of how people interact together, how people help each other. At the time I was pregnant, and we'd have to get up in the morning and search for the nearest water spigot, which would be 2 or 3 blocks you didn't know, but people interacted together. You'd have to get up in the morning and you only had meat like maybe once or twice a month, and neighbors would say, oh, okay, I'll mark your place in line. So I'd get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, mark my place in line for the vianda, which is the food that would come in at 4 o'clock. So at that time, it's a lot of hunger. There was rationing, but the spirit of people working together for a cause was something that I hadn't experienced outside of being in the Bayview in the early years.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, let's fast forward to the fact that you were a fugitive for a while, and then for a number of years, and then you were captured, and you did 9 years in Dublin. And I recall that you hit the ground running, as we say.
Yes, I was a fugitive or underground, depending on who's talking, for 16 years.
All right.
And then from there, when I finally was released, I was fortunate enough to still have parental rights of my children, which most women don't have. Most women who serve long-term sentences lose their children. They lose contact with their family and their loved ones, and very seldom, if ever, get visits. So it was very important for me to try to help the women that I left behind who would not get out soon. At least
Right.
I was getting out and still was able to walk.
Right.
So that's what began Families with the Future, which was the first Northern California, I say Northern because there was Denise Johnson in Southern California, who concentrated on children of incarcerated parents. This is before it was sexy, in terms of, other people doing it. And I welcome those because it's an area that's vastly underserved.
And it's my understanding the most recent statistics say that some 3 million children have parents who are incarcerated in this country.
Absolutely. They say 2, but you know what? They can't always count.
Of course not.
And the other thing is there's no one really counting
Probably
how many
at
children.
least 3 million.
Yeah. And then and the other part is that when a woman is arrested, you don't always say how many children you have and where they are and who has them.
Right.
Because of the distrust, what will happen.
Right. So what does happen when a woman is incarcerated and say she has several children? What happens?
Well, unfortunately, what can happen if the authorities know that a woman is incarcerated, any child is under 3, under the FAFSA, fast track adoption, that child can be permanently adopted out in 6 months.
In 6 months?
6 months.
A woman can lose her child or her children.
Yeah. If they're under 3, 6 months. If they're over 3, it's a year. If you have children who are over 3 and you have one under 3, you can lose your entire family in 6 months.
And this has happened, of course.
Oh yeah. Fortunately, in San Francisco, it's they can give you an extension, but this extension is not that much longer. In other parts of the country, they're cutting it out to 6 months, and the children are being permanently adopted. I call it the biggest chattel slavery since the auction block, because it's the largest separation of biological children from their from their parents. So it is a travesty. It's a big breakup of families. It really is. It's a travesty.
Yeah. One of the functions of Families with a Future is to actually facilitate visits, bringing the kids to visit their moms and their dads in prison. Yeah. How does that go? How does that work?
Mainly I focus on women, simply because women have the least. Women are, even culturally, they don't have people who stand by the women. Our culture says stand by the man. And so what we do is we try to unite families. Like right now, I'm working on a family that is, the mother's incarcerated. She's going to do a lot of time, most likely. And the children are separated. And one family member doesn't know the other one. So we're going to unite them with the help of a volunteer who's going to make that unification happen. So they will get to know each other. And then what's going to eventually happen, they will all meet and go visit their mother who's serving a long-term sentence.
Right. Now, let's talk a little bit about the women's prisons in California. I'm sure you're aware that there is something like 11,000 women in Chowchilla alone.
The women's,
or is that the Valley?
Well, it's two of them. It's VSP, and then there's Chowchilla, and then there are many other prisons stocked and all around. One thing that's very
for women.
Oh yeah, for women.
How many now are there for women? I can't keep up.
I don't know. I just know the last count there were 33 prisons, men and women's prison in California, and this is a prison state. I just want to say it's
absolutely.
A straight
Actually,
prison state.
if you count the camps and the units, it comes up to something like 95 or something prison camps all up and down California.